Hey guys, this is Jon Blau, your Clemson reporter for the Post and Courier. We're here for our weekly countdown to kickoff feature, one of our couple of things that's outside of the newspaper. Week to week, we kind of preview the upcoming football game here. For other updates and interesting things, you can also subscribe to my newsletter called the Tiger Take. You go to thepostandcourier.com/the Tiger Take. I will send you my stories along with other random bits of information behind the scenes kind of content. But back to countdown to kickoff and have Tim Bourret here again, the former football sports information director for Clemson football. I just said football twice. I'm being redundant, but Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, John. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. So UConn, I don't think they've ever played them in football, right? Have they ever played them in any sport? Has Clemson played UConn in any other type of memorable athletic event?
Oh, yes. Not a hair from a Clemson standpoint against UConn historically. Being a native of Connecticut, I'm well-versed in this area. How old are you?
I am 36.
Okay. So, Clemson played UConn in the NCAA tournament in Meadowlands, and UConn had a 19-point lead in the second half. The Tigers made a miraculous comeback behind Dale Davis and Eldon Campbell, two future NBA greats, and took a 70-69 lead. Then UConn came down and missed. The Tigers got the rebound, and with a little over a second left. Sean Tyson of Clemson goes to the foul line, misses the front end of the 1-and-1. UConn calls timeout with 1 second left. And Scott Burrell throws a length of the court pass to Tate George, who catches the ball, turns and shoots and makes the shot. And they beat us at the buzzer 71-70 to move on to the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament. That was arguably Clemson's most talented team in basketball history, crushing defeat. Fast forward 21 years later, and the UConn baseball team comes to Clemson for the NCAA regional. The Tigers are a number 1 seed. I think we might have been a national seed. And that UConn baseball team upset us. Clemson fans very disappointed in that. But as we look back at that UConn roster, no less than 5 University of Connecticut baseball players went on to play in the major leagues, including George Springer, who is the World Series MVP, I think, in 2017. So arguably 2 of UConn's greatest victories in other sports have come at Clemson. The Tigers have beaten UConn 4 times in men's soccer, and when both teams were really good in soccer in the 80s. So that's the long answer to Clemson, to your answer that been a little bit of heritage in other sports, but the first meeting in football.
Yeah, I think Dabo was talking about it, and said he couldn't remember. He's obviously never played them, but in football, UConn's been struggling as of late. They didn't play the entire 2020 season because of the pandemic. They're 1-8 this year. Coaching change earlier in the year with Lou Spanos coming in for Randy Edsall. I think Dabo was just being a little honest, where he said, we can't overlook them, and I'm going to play everybody, because if we lose this game, there'll be a new head coach at Clemson. I mean, you can't afford to lose a game like this, or not be prepared in a game like this for a team like UConn, which he didn't explicitly say this, but a team that's struggling and a team that Clemson's expected to beat. So I guess what are some of the storylines going into the game? I mean, it seems like it's mostly just Clemson versus Clemson, if we kind of frame it that way, rather than who does UConn have or not have. But I guess what would be some of the key points that you would point to coming into this game as being important?
Well, unfortunately, John, we lost our best storyline, which would have been the matchup of Pumachan quarterbacks. UConn's second string quarterback is Tyler Pumachan, of course, is Tyson. Pumachan, who's played pretty well of late, but unfortunately in the Vanderbilt game, you suffered a knee injury and was lost for the rest of the year. He played a good bit and had kind of similar quarterback, obviously, to Tyson, but that would have been the first time in the history of Death Valley that you had dueling brothers playing a quarterback on opposite sides of the field. I know of 3 times where brothers have faced each other in Death Valley. One would be the Richardson's brothers in 1982, John for North Carolina and Mark for Clemson. Mark has gone on to be on the Clemson Board of Trustees. They played a 1982 game at Clemson. Michael Hamlin was a defensive back for Clemson. His brother was a defensive state when the 2 teams played in 2008. And I believe Matt Bockhorst's brother played I can't remember which game that was, but that was, I think, when Bockhorst was a freshman, maybe at Kent State, I think. So those times I remember that happening. So unfortunately, we lost that great storyline. Tyson still came and did interviews this week and did talk about it. We still have 20 members of the Pumachan family coming to the game this weekend. UConn is letting Tyler travel, so at least with the brothers will get to see each other. As far as X's and O's and that type of thing, I think from you hear the coaches or in all sports talk about we just have to worry about ourselves and doing well. And it is an important game for Clemson from the standpoint of trying to continue a good bit of momentum that we've seen from the offense. Obviously, Clemson's offense has not been up to standards this year, but has made some strides. Clemson has scored 30 points in each of the last 2 games, albeit the Florida State game was scored on a defensive wacky play at the end of that game, but still have made strides offensively and some distribution. And I think it's important that DJ Uyunglele has another good game, put back-to-back games going into that Wake Forest game this past weekend. His efficiency was 143, 0.6, which was by far his best, this season. And obviously, Bo Collins had a breakout game. It'd be nice to see him have similar success this week.
Yeah, you go back to that Louisville game. I mean, one of the big things for DJ Uyunglele is he had 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he didn't have any interceptions. So didn't turn the ball over. They're able to maintain possession, which they needed every single one of them. They needed every single one of those BT Potter field goals too, to be able to pull out, a win at the end, and needed a defensive stop at the very end of the game. But this is one of those rare games for Dabo Swinney he was talking about, where the offense actually somewhat carried the defense, because the defense struggled to contain Malik Cunningham the entire night, because he's just a phenomenal player. He kind of showed why that Dabo is saying he's Lamar-esque in terms of Lamar Jackson. But the offense being able to, again, 2 weeks in a row, make drives that they need to make to win the game. You need to kind of maintain that offensive success, like you were saying, and keep that going, because Wake Forest is the team, and that's looking 2 weeks ahead, but a team that can score points. And so how Clemson maintains that is going to be extremely, extremely crucial. I mean, were there any particular things that you think, again, not turning the ball over for DJ, but was there anything else offensively that stood out to you, I guess, the way Clemson played last week?
Well, I know you did. You are not listening to our radio because you're at the game. But I said one of the keys of the game before Louisville is that DJ needed to improve on his third down accuracy. Going into the Louisville game, he only completed 39% of his passes on third down, and incredibly was only 5 of 23, 21%. On third and either 4, 5, or 6 yards to go. In the Louisville game, he was 6 for 9 on third down for 60 yards and was 3 for 3 in that third down and 4 to 6 distance situation. So I think that was certainly important. It's important to move the change, and I think he got some confidence. I really, looking at DJ going to practice, whatever, he looks great in practice, but sometimes in the games early in the season, I think he lacked for some confidence, which goes back to that first game of the season against Georgia. I've said on your show here that this might have been the worst year for Clemson to start the season, playing the #1 defense in the country. Might be the best defense in college football in the last 5 years, in terms of scoring defense. And I thought that game did set the Clemson offense in particular from some confidence. So that's why I think it's important that now we've had a couple of games in a row. He's looked pretty good. This is an important game to continue that strong confidence against UConn. And UConn is 85th in the country in pass defense. They're 107th in total defense. So hopefully he can continue some good numbers.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bo Collins earlier too, as well. He had his first 100-yard receiving game, 6 catches for 104, had that huge 46-yard touchdown on they call it the home run post route, which is one that actually goes back to high school for DJ and Bo, both playing at St. John Bosco. And it's one of their favorites. And it just brings me back to thinking about Dabo. Dabo Swinney's talked about it multiple times. Where Bo is the best route runner he's seen come into the program as a freshman, other than, the only 2 being in his company, Sammy Watkins and Justin Ross. And so that's pretty good company. I guess, do you remember Sammy Watkins when he first got to Clemson? And does Bo, his, I guess, route running ability remind you of kind of what Sammy was very early in his career?
Sammy Watkins from the get-go, I never saw a guy who could get off the line of scrimmage, and obviously that did lead to route running. But those little screen passes, he could always turn those into 7-8 yard gains, when a lot of guys would only get a couple of yards. He was booking it right from the get-go. And Sammy came here. He had 1 practice. He was second team. The second practice in August of his freshman year in 2011. He moved up to first team, and that was it. He was first team the rest of his career. So, Bo will have to go some still to reach a Sammy Watkins level in my mind, but still he is good at it, and he does get off the line of scrimmage and does run precise routes. So Dabo obviously has a good eye for it, having been a wide receivers coach before he was the head coach.
Yeah, and just Bo is one of a number of just young guys for this Clemson offense, and that will be something that we'll again see in this UConn game. Is if they play the way that we expect. I mean, a lot of guys are going to get playing time, not even just the guys that are already in the game, but in terms of just the freshmen that are making an impact. I mean, you think of Bo Collins, you think of Will Shipley. Marcus Tate has had his ups and downs at left guard, but he's kind of fought through them, gotten better throughout the season. DJ, obviously a sophomore, but a lot of freshmen across the board. I mean, if you even go to the defensive side of the ball with Andrew Makuba at safety and Barrett Carter at linebacker. Do you remember, I mean, is this a large number of freshmen, do you feel like, to be contributing this early? Just if you go through the various names, I mean, is this one of, I know it was supposed to be one of the more experienced teams in a sense, because you got Skalski and Turner and all those guys back, but it seems like there's a lot of youth as well. I mean, a lot of guys that are going to be coming back, and I guess is that exciting in a way?
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of an interesting mixture. I just completed writing my last program article for the Wake Forest game that I always traditionally for the last home game write on the senior class. And of course, this year you got a senior class that's all over the place. You got 5 guys who entered in 2016, 10 that entered in 2017, 15 that entered in 2018. So it's almost like you got 6 classes of guys. But you're right. There have been a lot of freshmen that have contributed. I remember in probably the 1988 senior freshman class, we had 5 guys in that freshman class who made a Sporting News all freshman, one of their freshman All-America teams that year. We had Dexter Davis, who went on the NFL, Levon Kirkland, who went on the NFL, Ed McDaniel went on the NFL, started as freshmen. So that would be a class I think of as great freshman classes. But you're right, and especially in the area of the skill positions. Now in 2014, just a few years ago, it was that way because you had Deshaun Watson started most of the year, he got hurt. But I remember the South Carolina game of 2014, you had Deshaun Watson start at quarterback. You had Wayne Gallman start at running back and Artavis Scott at wide receiver. And Scott, I believe, set the record for Clemson receiving yardage in a game against South Carolina. Of course, Deshaun threw for, I think, 287 yards. And Gallman, I think, rushed for 180 in that game. So that would be a recent class that I would compare to freshmen of influence, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. And the list I gave wasn't even complete. I'm just thinking about it more. Obviously, Phil Maffa at running back as well. You have Jake Brennenstuhl starting to play at tight end. Dakari Collins is a guy, another Collins. I heard a Joe refer to them as the Collins Towers at one point. I guess Bo and Dakari, not related, but they both have the same last name, both long, rangy athletes. Dakari probably had a touchdown last week that didn't count. I mean, we saw the replay. If it was called on the field as a touchdown, it probably wouldn't have been overturned. Probably not enough there to overturn it either way. And so it was called on the field incomplete. So it just stayed that way. But a lot of guys and really opportune as well, because obviously at receiver, there's been some injuries. Frank Ladson Jr. going down. Brandon Spector hasn't been able to play yet. EJ Williams has been in and out, and Joseph Ngata now has a foot injury. So he's probably going to be out for a while. So really needed Bo Collins to emerge there in the slot, and now Dakari Collins on the outside. I guess you go to practices. Has Dakari Collins ever stood out to you as well as a guy who can make a splash maybe?
Yeah, I certainly think he can. Now, quite frankly, Bo Collins, it seemed like he's been ahead of him most of the time, but Dakari has certainly made some plays. And you're right. I saw a few pictures on the internet of that catch by Dakari at Louisville, and it sure looked like he barely, but it looked like he had that foot in bounds. So it's a shame that got taken away from him. But yeah, I know. I think Dakari is going to be a good player, be a contributor, and coming down the stretch here, he's going to get some opportunities. It's just a shame with Ladson and Ngata have really had a injury-plagued career so far. I mean, they've certainly had their moments in games, but it seemed like they've been injured more than they've been able to participate.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Ngata was actually having a really great year. He was the leading receiver, and then he came down with COVID, and now the foot injury. So just a lot of stuff going on for Ngata, for a lot of guys. I mean, it's just been so many different injuries throughout the year. And that was one of the things also, I guess, flipping it back to the defense a little bit, that it was impressive about that goal line stand. I mean, you think about how depleted the defensive line has been at times with Brian Brzee out for the year. Tyler Davis still has that giant, almost robot arm on the right side. And you got all these other guys, that have been in and out. Balin Spector's had an injury at times. James Skalski, just so many different guys affected on that side of the ball. But Louisville gets the ball at the 2-yard line, 4 plays with Malik Cunningham, a guy who had been hurting them all day, and they can't get in. Again, talking about depth, RJ Mickens is a guy who made a couple of plays on that goal line stand. Think about Xavier Thomas, a guy who was struggling last year. I mean, it was ballooned to 300 pounds, and he's coming crashing down the line on one of those plays, the very last one, to help kind of seal the deal. Nolan Turner missed a couple games early in the year. He's there as well. So just really impressive. I mean, have you seen a team have this many goal line stands, in the course of a year? I mean, obviously going back to Georgia Tech, and obviously this one, and I mean, multiples to be able to do what they've done throughout the year. so reliable in that phase. I mean, how often have you seen a defense like this that can do that, repeat that in that situation the way they have?
The quick answer to your question is I can't think of any. I mean, we've had some very good defenses, but as I look at my national stats, opponent red zone scoring possessions, 59%. Clemson's third in the nation in defending, the red zone, and especially not allowing very many touchdowns. By the way, UConn is 120 opponent red zone defense. But no, you're right. Now, Brent Venables has always had a good knack of studying film. I remember, speaking of Louisville, when we played Louisville in 2014, which was, I believe, the first time that we played him. It was a real close game, and there was a long pass on the last drive that J-Ron Kirsch tracked down the player, and it was about 1st and goal at the 5, maybe. And on their last play that they tried to run, ball was deflected by Deshaun Williams, who's now in the NFL with Cleveland, I think, with Denver. And so we won the game kind of in similar fashion, although that was a pass. And in the post game, Venables said he had seen them. Seen them run that play in a similar situation on some film he was looking at. And it really told me the degree to which I'm coach, because I mean, we hadn't even played them before, and he kind of had an idea what kind of play they were going to run, and he communicated that to the team, and he actually practiced against it. So, one of the reasons we're so good in the red zone is because of the smarts of the defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, and also the smarts of a Skulski, who's on the field. You might remember on that last play, Skulski was right there along with Xavier Thomas. Skulski has been a big key to that red zone defense. But that was a big, to have first to the quarterback who's been successful. I saw a lot of people say, well, Khan was hurt, but in that last play, it looked like he was pretty fast to me getting to the outside. He didn't look very slow to me. So it was a good, just a good defensive concept for the Tigers in that last possession for Louisville.
Yeah, because again, just knowing what they're doing. I mean, they were playing with 3 down linemen. Obviously, it's very compressed, but they were basically able to spill Louisville to the outside and then use their speed to their advantage. Andrew Makuba had one play where he pretty much just rifled towards Malik Cunningham. Looked like he was faster than him, which was really impressive for again, the type of playmaker Cunningham is. See Makuba make that play. But yeah, I mean, this is a game that will be interesting though for the defense, because UConn has had 3 weeks to prepare for this one. You don't often see multiple bye weeks for a team coming into a game like this. So I guess, do you wonder if UConn's going to have any tricks up their sleeve since they've had so much time to prepare for Clemson? I mean, would it be completely unexpected to see a completely unexpected, offensive scheme or something like that coming out of this?
Now, I know Dabo brought that up at his press conference, and he's, he's correct. The history of this from the opposite standpoint. 1993, Clemson was playing the University of Virginia. Virginia was ranked, had a really good team under George Welch. They came to Clemson. The Tigers had a couple of weeks to prepare. It was Ken Hatfield's last season. I think we're 6-3. What he did, what we had been struggling on offense. Here's something to watch. In 1993, Clemson actually finished last in the ACC, but won 9 games. We were the first ACC team to finish last in the ACC in total offense. We might do that again this year. But anyway, so in that bye week, he put the wishbone in, and we went to Dexter McLeon, who was a defensive back, and put him in at quarterback. And we ran for 300 and something yards. Dexter hit a couple of passes just to keep him honest. one long 73-yard touchdown pass to Terry Smith, allowing him to become Clemson's career leader in receiving yardage that day. And Clemson won the game. I think it was 23-14. And so that was just totally shocking to Virginia that we did that. Now we've been kind of an option team to go total wishbone. Was kind of a surprise. Do I think you kind of go total wishbone against? Not, but they've had plenty of time to come up with some things.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting to see what happens. The other interesting thing is that, Clemson isn't completely out of the ACC title race. They seemed pretty far out before, but like we were talking about, getting momentum going into Wake Forest. If Wake Forest, loses one other game and then also loses to Clemson, Clemson can have the tiebreaker over them. If North Carolina State then also has to lose a couple of games out of their last three, and one of them being potentially this week, Wake Forest, they're playing this week before the Wake Forest comes to Clemson. So does it seem like a 99 out of 100 chance, or I don't know what you would say, 1 out of 100? It would be 1 out of 100 the other way around. That Clemson is able to get an ACC title game, or have you seen stranger things happen in the final weeks of the season?
I'm trying to think of some craziness that happened at the end. Usually, John, it's kind of been cut and dry as we come down the stretch. A little bit on an offshoot of your comment, though, I think one of the great questions for Clemson fans this weekend is, who do you root for between Wake Forest and NC State? And I thought about that too, because you need NC State to lose 2. You really only need Wake Forest to lose 1 if you're gonna, if you're gonna have a chance for this. You got to beat them next week. So I don't know. My gut is to root for Wake Forest, and then NC State's just got to lose one other of the teams that they play, and of course Wake would have to lose just one, but they've got 2 other. I think they each have 2 other conference games. So I don't know. The way I look at it is to have Wake beat NC State, and then us turn around and beat Wake, and then hope Wake loses to a Boston College team that now has Phil Jurkovec back.
That's true. Yeah, Boston College is a stronger team probably than even when Clemson saw them. So that's not impossible. It's I don't know. I don't know if I should handicap it and say if it's 60-40 or 70-30 or, again, 1 out of 100 chance. But well, I guess we'll see. And that's the fun thing about sports. We never know what's going to happen. So
I'd say it's worse than 50-50. So, but you got to also remember those 2 programs are not in this position a lot. We're like, oh my God, we got to win this game to get in the ACC championship. In the ACC championship game, I guess in 2006, that's the last time they were in it. And NC State hasn't played for the ACC championships really since 1979. So it's been a long time for both of them.
Yeah, the tables have turned. So now they're finally the hunted. It's kind of the roles have switched, and Clemson is hunting. So we'll see how that hunting goes. We'll see how Clemson manages a game that, again, everybody expects them to win. Again, kind of if they're able to maintain some momentum going into Wake Forest. That will be our conversation. I think we're kind of running out of time here. I guess one more time to just tell the listeners, if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, The Tiger Take, it is postingcourier.com/The Tiger Take. So thanks for listening. Thanks, Tim, for stopping by, and we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, John.